All right, well, let's make the most of this hour today. We have our lovely Kimari with us today. I met her last year before I graduated. I was in a big transition at the time, and our conversation was so helpful. I figured, why not bring her here, have her just dispel all this wisdom and very helpful information she shared with me. Hopefully, you guys will find it interesting. I know well, I'll let you introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background, just some of the work that you're currently doing, some of your passion projects, and then just kind of get everybody acquainted with who you are and what you do. And then we'll get started with questions or whatever we got going on for today.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Well, I'm Kimari Pitman. You feel free to call me Kim. My background is in industrial and organizational psychology, and it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So really kind of fell into that space after my background isn't specifically change management. So I kind of navigated my way here through just all of the work experience I've previously had, very customer focused, very process oriented, very into the details. And so IO just ended up being like a natural fit for me, trying to leverage people to do good work, as well as just kind of lean out the inefficiencies in a process. And so my husband was in the military, just to give you a little bit of background about me in the military. So we kind of went from duty station to duty station, and I kind of just got in where I fit in, which I don't regret because it gave me an opportunity to really experience what my clients probably are experiences. I've worked for organizations that are a little chaotic in nature, could use some refinement, didn't leverage their people the right way. And so I learned through that experience how I would like to see things done, and then furthered that with the educational aspect and getting into IO. And then I also got my Lean Six Sigma certification as well. And so was able to really take all of those different experiences. And when I say my background is eclectic, I was a tenant manager for a housing office. I was a system administrator and front office and administrator for a university. So I've just kind of been around in different spaces, but they all really do have to kind of deal with the customer. And then you also have the people that are within the organization that have to also support out those outcomes. And so picked up a couple of just natural things along the way, and then decided to get into school, got my master's done in IO, and then really jumped in with both feet trying to look into like change management. For me, the driver was I've worked in organizations, and when you're kind of in that middle level, you don't have as much impact. And so the ability to work with the leaders, to work with the leaders, to work with their people really drew me in, because you can influence way more than if I was just another, worker bee within the line. And so started trying to look into what different options I had to kind of go into my career. IO is so vast and how you can apply it. Didn't really have like a good idea of where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to do like change management, but I didn't know how I wanted to leverage that. Looked into training because I had done that when I was working at the university and helping people shift through program dynamics and all of those things. And so finally, my husband retired. We moved back to the East Coast, and I found Rockwood. And that's currently the company that I'm working for. It's a small woman-owned business, and we work in the national security sector. And so our project work can vary. My project work in particular has been a long-standing one. So I'm now into my second option year for supporting this client in particular. And we don't have like a set number of deliverables. We have just ad hoc requests. If they need us to do it and it's within, the work statement, then we do that. So we turn around things really, really quickly, as opposed to some of my counterparts on other projects where they might just be working on a strategy implementation. And so ours is complex in the nature of we had to really get a good relationship established quickly to be able to be effective in their space, because we're not the experts on what they do. They are. We're the experts in change management. And so how we get them to understand those principles. Sometimes they don't want to understand those principles. They don't want to think. They just want to be able to execute. And so it's really trying to meet them where they were coming out of school, that application piece versus the textbook way of how you're supposed to do things, step by step. And we should be doing this is really kind of not thrown out the window, but not being married to the outcome of what you're working towards. It's really meeting the client where they're at. And what I like about this company in particular is that we really do collaborate. The intent is not to create systems or processes that they can't maintain on their own. We really do want to be effective in them being able to accomplish those things on their own. So they have more of a human-centered approach of let's get everybody involved very early on, which is definitely something in IO that they talk about. If you want lasting change, people have to be involved in the process. And so getting them involved in the process eliminates them cherry picking what they want to do. And sometimes we can't control that too. But we're able to have a greater impact and more lasting change with them and making them moving the dial forward and making sure that they continue to build on the progress that they had with us. And so out of that, we're really not trying to trap them into, oh, you need to keep us on one more year. It's more or less giving them the tools, giving them the knowledge that they need to kind of excel. And because we're so free flowing with that, they want to come back for more. They'd say, oh, well, we want you to help us here and we want you to help us here. And so it's been a tremendous experience for me now being in the change space of what does that look like? How does that work? How do the different nuances show up and how you navigate them? And I think with Rockwood, because it is a smaller organization, I have an opportunity to kind of look across all of the different aspects of change management as it pertains to the business, how they organize operations. Because we wear a multitude of different hats, I got way more experience and knowledge to grow. So I think that is a benefit of a smaller organization. That said, there's also challenges with a smaller organization. It's smaller, so you do need people to wear more hats. I wear 3. So I'm a consultant at Rockwood. I'm also a project manager and I'm a career manager. And so I also support a couple of different initiatives to kind of help develop the people within the organization, as well as just push their mission forward. I would say if you were looking to go to a larger organization, there are benefits there too. They have the ability to, provide more competitive compensation. And you do get the experience of being on contract work that it is a little bit faster, typically like 3 to 6 months. And so you're moving around a lot. And so if you like diversity in your environment, diversity in what you're accomplishing, that is also an aspect of being at a larger organization. The cons being more or less that you're kind of pigeonholed into a specific lane. And so really being able to explore what your different options are can be challenging because they want you to do one specific thing instead of let me build on all of the different skill sets that I have. I've been just running my mouth, so I'll pause. But that's a little bit about my background, a little bit about what led me to Rockwood and what I'm doing now, and a little bit about what I do on my day-to-day. But happy to expand in any area and answer any questions that you guys might have.
Great, thank you for that. So if you guys have any questions, please just raise your little hand on the thing so we can get a little roll going, and then we'll call you on your name. Just some housekeeping that I forgot to do at the beginning. I was just so excited to get you talking. And okay, so one of the first things, and this is something that I've had some conversation around, is the things that we learn in school. You got your master's in IO, and the things that we actually do in the workplace. Talk to me about that, because change management, I mean, when I read it, I was like, oh, I want to do this. And then you add in the factor of leaders and personalities and feelings about the work and feelings about the project and how it's good and the culture. I mean, tell me, how are you leveraging what you know and the reality of a workplace and a project?
Yeah. So initially definitely had a lot of imposter syndrome of like, do I really know what I'm doing? The work that we have is so ambiguous that there isn't one right answer. It's not like a job where they train you up, they give you a manual, this is how you do this if this happens, right? There's a variety of responses, deliverables, answers, all of those things. And so really just starting to kind of trust on your experience and your knowledge. Within Rockwood, we try to um, set up our project work to have different people with different backgrounds. So I'm the only one with IO on our team. And so I have to remind myself that not everybody is thinking about the people perspective. Not everybody is thinking about how does this influence their reception to these communications that we're going to send out. So it's really just trying to tap into one, that intuition of what you would think somebody would do and react to. Again, very quickly, you want to try to start to establish a rapport because clients aren't always going to tell you what the actual problem is. They'll say, oh, we need to have this spreadsheet done by this time. Well, why? And so they'll skirt around it. And it could be because this person is breathing down my neck, but they don't want to say this person is breathing down my neck, right? So you use some of those people management skills to engage them, to disarm them so that they feel comfortable enough to actually tell you what's going on. So then you and your team can start to strategize, okay, how do we really effectively address this issue? Because we don't want to address the symptoms because that's not going to do anything. It's always like trying to get to the root of the problem. And that's one of the first things that we try and accomplish with them. Um, and for me, it is still continuously like imposter syndrome because sometimes it's just like, okay, well, let me research this. Let me look it up. And I think, okay, I'm just going to look this up on Google and that's okay. Or, just trying to really feel confident in how we're going through and providing options for our clients. And so typically what I like to do on my team is have each one of us have like a connection point within the organization, and people tend to talk once they feel comfortable. And because of that, I can get insights to behaviors, see how people are going to react, see what's in the water right now. I don't want to send out, I'll use the example right now. We're assisting our client with a merger of two very large organizations. And so it's a lot. It is overwhelming. There's so many things on their plate. And so not only am I thinking about, oh, I need them to get this task done, but I also have to frame it in a way of this is my job all day. This is the addition to their daily responsibilities. So really trying to think about how you're engaging them, how frequently you're engaging them, making sure that you're leveraging their time appropriately. But the situation today was like we had a very quick turn task, which is very appropriate for the client's environment. And so we had to request somebody to give us some information. And I had to tell him, well, technically it's due today. But we've been able to kind of stretch those timelines. If you need more time, I know this is a, ad hoc request. And so he was very upset about that. And so that kind of created a snowball effect. And so when we have like those high sensitivities, I try to immediately contact my client POC. Hey, I had this conversation with this person. I tried to convey this message, and then we problem solve together. We at least have that relationship. Some clients, they're really rough, and so you really have to just kind of figure out who's the best personality to engage with them, who's the best personality to convey the message, and really understand how they like to receive information, how they like to kind of work through a problem. Like I said, my client doesn't want to think. They've got so many other things to do. So me trying to be like, here's the principles of change. It's going to fall on deaf ears. They're going to be annoyed with me. And I want to maintain that relationship. And so it's a fine boundary of trying to keep them accountable for things, but really trying to tap into kind of what I know to be true in their environment, cross-referencing that with what I've learned in school, to kind of just get tips and understand it. And then also continuing to learn and grow. That's a big thing at Rockwood. We continually are trying to just evolve and improve on what we're doing, which requires training, which requires strengthening that skill set that we have. and looking for more opportunities to understand it better. So it's kind of a combination of things. You're navigating it, you're really feeling some things out, and sometimes it's painful. I know for me, I just need to be in the situation one time. I just need to be able to scope everything out one time. And hopefully, I've planned things accordingly so they go smoothly. But sometimes they don't. And the thing that I always advocate for is you're going to mess up. There's no way that it's not going to happen. It's cool, it's fine. How you navigate it afterwards is everything. So next time you show up, make sure that you've got all of your I's dotted and all of your T's crossed, and making sure that you are factoring in those things that you heard them say in the meeting that we might not have accounted for before. And it's very much being aware in your environment, assessing as quickly as possible, and then just trying to match the energy that you're receiving from the client to be able to further deepen that relationship and then leverage that to be successful in this space.
So consulting is definitely it's a role where you're constantly learning new things. You're constantly switching and pivoting and just making sure that you're meeting the needs that are required to fulfill the role, whatever it is that you're doing or the project it is. So what are some, when you first, you graduated, you completed, you first encountered the workforce and you're trying to get this job, which sounds very interesting. And it sounds like it's a really fun time and challenging like any other job. What were some of the skills that really helped you get to the point where you're at working in change management? Because from what I know, sometimes getting into those roles can be very difficult because they're looking at very specific skills, very specific backgrounds, education, whatever. So we all have all kinds of different backgrounds, right? We are diverse. So what were some of the skills that you think this is kind of what got me in the door?
I think one, my tenacity at first, like I was definitely not letting certain barriers get in my way. So being persistent, looking for those opportunities to engage, because most of the time it's all online and it's through a form. So if I could call and talk to someone, I did. For Rockwood, I actually ended up not intentionally, but the number listed that I found ended up being the CEO's number. So I called and left a message with her, and it worked out to my benefit. So like you take all the chances that you can, because it is there's a wide variety of what we could be doing. I would highly suggest trying to narrow down that focus to like 3 focus areas. So whether you want to do health and administration, whether you want to do, HR and helping with the people management side, I think there's a variety of ways that you can approach getting into that field. And then I think once you've narrowed that down, you can start looking at the job positions, really trying to highlight on your resumes, not only what you did, but what was the impact. So, revitalize the program. Okay, for what? What happened? Revitalize the program and reduced redundancies by 30%. Like you want to kind of expand and pull on that thread so that they can see how you'll benefit their company. They don't need to just know what you can do, but what was your impact of what you did. And then I think if you can reach out, just like what you did, Gabby, like you reached out, you're trying to figure out what does the environment look like. So finding people who are either at an organization that you're interested in, or finding just other professionals in the field to kind of give you insights on what they did. I would not be too concerned about certifications because some organizations leverage assessments differently. So you might go through all of the work to get your SHRM or go through all of the work to get a PMP, and that's not really what they're looking for. Like they might use a leverage something different. And so being just conscientious of what space you're going into. So you could, if you have a particular company in mind that you're really gunning for, look at the people who work there, see what they have on their education palette, and if there's certifications that you think could strengthen your ability to be seen as a viable applicant, go for it. But I would not invest a whole bunch of time and money into it just because it could shift. And I have experienced that where like I've gone for this and then I'm not using it. So just a bit of advice. I don't think that it'll hurt to have that if you already have certs. But not a lot of at least in my organization, it's good to have, but it's not a must-have on our end.
And I like that because that's one of the main reasons why we're meeting now. And I started this group was because when I graduated, that I didn't have a lot of guidance into what is it that I need to do? Who do I need to talk to? I seriously, and this may sound naive, but I'm a first generation, I'm an immigrant. I thought, you know what, I'm going to get an education and it's going to be great. People are going to knock on my door and they're going to be like, here's a job.
Mhm.
That was a rude awakening.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see that some people really recommend the informational interviews. Some people recommend really go and meet and network, and it all really boils down to do your research, know what you want to do, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, and how is your degree going to play a role when you're in that, because it never, I feel like when you're in this IO perspective, like you're saying, it's not that somebody's coming out to you and saying, in this project, this is how I want you to use your IO skills. It's just you really doing the work of understanding how this connects to this and how I can make it better. And I think that also takes a skill, and it's an art form to be able to do consulting, to be able to bring our degree and our education into what we do. And I didn't know a lot of that. I've learned so much from these conversations because it is so vague. When when you get this degree, it's really cool and it's not very common, and people are like, that's cool, but then it kind of stops there. So
Yeah.
does anybody have any questions? I know it just kind of been, yes, go ahead. What's your question? Talk to us.
Hi, Kim. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you
Hi.
again too, Gabby. Um, I just wanted to ask a question. If you could talk more about project management, like what you do in that space in your job, just because I don't know as much about that role as some of the others you mentioned, and it's one that's interesting to me. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the project manager for our specific client. And so I'm helping them navigate a merger of their organization. And so there's a couple of different things that I am aware of as I'm being a PM, not only just like what the client's needs are, but what my team's needs are. And so I want to be able to lift them up and support them in the right way. So typically we'll have a daily stand up. Not every project has to do that. But because our work environment changes so very quickly, I feel like it's very important for us to be on the same page and in alignment. So that way, if we need to pivot, we can do it very quickly together. And so then I'm really maintaining from an administrative piece the project spend plan, staffing, any shifts to our budget, contractual agreements, communicating that not only to the client, but to our account manager and my senior leadership here, and making sure that we're in compliance with everything that they're asking. And so Rockwood has really high standards. So we don't always just want to go for meeting the standard. We want to go like exceptional. Like we want to make sure that we are delivering gold star material. So we actively meet with our operations manager and team every month just to kind of review the health of the project itself. And then with my team, it's a lot of kind of looking at all of the priorities that we have, factoring in where I know where we're going to go, and then trying to collectively, efficiently move us around to support those efforts and any requests for the clients. Because we're supporting such a large effort, I have my team divided up kind of tackling different things based off of their skill sets and what they're strong at. Because I also want to give them an opportunity to grow and learn. So I'll do some pairing sometimes for certain activities so that way they can kind of stretch that muscle a little bit. And then with the client, it is very much I'm the main POC. So any issues, any disruptions, any challenges, like the conversation that I had with one of the client's personnel earlier today, I'm going to be the one who goes and communicates that to them. Hey, we had this issue, this challenge, so that way they're ahead of anybody reaching out to them. And then really kind of working on that client relationship management. Rockwood, because it's a small organization, I'm still trying to do my consulting aspect too. So I have to make sure that I'm popping in there for certain things, but I'm the lead facilitator for our meetings. I do a lot of the communications going out to the workforce on the client side. And so I really am the person that maintains the status quo for what we've got going on. And I elevate any risks, I elevate any challenges, and then highlight decision points for the client, and then make sure my team is in alignment for how we execute. Today was supposed to be like a light day. I had like a lot of white space on my calendar, but I get a lot of disruptions of, hey, can you look at this? Hey, I've got this challenge. And so I'm like that strategy person to help them kind of walk through some of their thoughts for how they want to approach getting some work done. If we have like a deliverable where it's a communications product, I kind of walk through the plan with them, make sure that it's in accordance. And then I'll typically do a review on all the materials that leave out of our project to do a QC, make sure that it's got the right tone, make sure that it's going to have the right reception, and anticipate any changes that we might need to make, or even just setting up the delivery of it to kind of inform the client on what they're going to be receiving. So it's a little bit of everything, but it's really just maintenance management, and that relationship building that I'm trying to create between ourselves and the client.
Awesome. Very detailed answer, and I like that. That's a pretty good idea of how your day goes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody want to comment before I continue with my 1,000 questions? All right. If you happen to have a question or a comment, just put your little hand up and we'll go from there. So I am really curious about, is this where you're like, I made it, I got the job that I wanted? Have you reached that point where this is really where I enjoy what I do? Or are you still working on goals for the future, things that you might still want to do? Or do you have any passion projects?
Yeah. So I think in terms of like professionally, this is definitely where I want to be. Rockwood has really given me an opportunity to grow and learn, and I really appreciate that about them, and the influence just even in my own voice that I can have for company objectives. That said, I definitely still see myself kind of, this is what my career life is going to look like. And then after that, I have my own kind of passions. But I do think I'm going to try and go for my doctorate in organizational leadership. And then from there, I think I'll probably stay with Rockwood for a while right now, kind of working my way towards like an account manager and supporting other projects, and that strategic piece. But I also really love like just pampering. And so like the idea of doing like an esthetician, doing something where like I'm doing facials, like a side hustle, and doing something outside of this, like having that balance of things that kind of bring you joy. The work really does. It can be stressful. It can definitely be a lot, but I feel like I'm at home right now for where I'm at. And I'm seeing the possibilities for future growth and all of those things. And so for me, I think I'm still keeping my eyes and ears, open, but this has definitely given me that space to be passionate and to pour myself into something. So
here's a controversial question, and I like to ask everybody that comes in: doctorate or not or no doctorate? And what's your—
I don't think you have to. I think for me, it's like more of a personal passion to kind of expand. But I don't think, unless you are really, really into it and really feel like you just want to have that, I don't think it's necessary. I don't feel like it's going to change how people view you, especially within an organization. Like I'm not, I mean, sometimes people might be influenced by the doctor on the front end, but me personally, even though I want to get one, I don't think it's needed. I don't think it's necessary. And I don't think it'll make you a stronger candidate to go somewhere else. I think that there's still the propensity for them to pick somebody who just has a master's or a bachelor's. So it just furthers my ability to learn and capture that in a way that has a title.
Yeah, I was talking to a colleague this morning and we were sharing that feeling of grad school was tough. It was difficult. I'm gonna assume that most of us have to have a job. If you don't, then you're in heaven. That's just my assumption, right? And we were talking about that and we were talking, will we get a doctorate at some point? And I think the mutual feeling was you have to have a pretty strong why. Why are you doing it? Because it's, from what I hear, it's a pretty big commitment. It's something that will take a lot of time, and there's a lot of balancing acts that you have to play throughout your life, personal life, work life, and then academics. And so I think when you have that strong reason, this is my why, this is where I'm going with it, I think it makes a difference. And I know I've had conversations with some people that are like, you don't need it, I got it, and it really doesn't make a difference where I'm at. So I think that's the biggest thing, that if you have a pretty clear path of where you're going with this, I think it's good. And I think, although I'm the same way, I do want one. I don't have a very strong why just yet. Like, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I really want to focus on? So, Patrick, what you got?
Hi. Yeah, so I'm very, very biased when it comes to this question because I'm actually going to a PhD program in the fall. But I think I totally agree with the why, and I think another distinction to make is between whether or not if you really are dead set on being a practitioner of the science, applying what other people have researched and putting it into practice in organizations, then I would say don't go for the PhD, because that's all about trying to create a skill set in researching new areas and producing novel research rather than just the application of it. And another caveat is that a lot of PhD programs, you should go to one that is funded. That means that they cover your tuition and they give you a living stipend. I mean, it's poverty level stuff, but it's a living stipend. But so that's another caveat as well. But yeah, I think a big cost is the time commitment as well, right? You're putting 4 to 6 years, even more for some people, towards a credential. So if all you want is that credential, it's not going to be worth it unless you have a lot of intrinsic motivation for it.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better. That's I definitely agree with what you're stating. Because that time commitment is definitely, and I think that's why I'm dragging my feet right now. It's just like, because I thought about it when I was going through my master's, and I was like, oh well, let me just do a program that you fully transition into the other, and it is definitely extensive. And if you're juggling a lot, you want to make sure that you have the availability to kind of see that through, so you don't feel like you're wasting your effort.
Yeah, and another thing that I've noticed with most of the IOs I've spoken to in the past is that they've taken like 5 to 10 years to get theirs, or it really rarely was it right after grad school. They took some time, got some jobs, got some experience, really experience what is out there, what kind of jobs I want to do, what do I like, what I don't like. And because IO has those technical side and then the people side, right? Which one do I want to go into, and where do I want to really use this doctorate in? So it's definitely something that we really got to think about. And Patrick, congrats on that. You got to keep us updated on how that goes. You got to come back and tell us this is great or this is really tough. I'm sure it's gonna be a journey.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it'll be tough. So I'll keep you guys updated for sure.
Yes, you keep coming back and we'll cheer for you.
Yeah, seriously.
Delene, am I saying that right? Delene?
It's Delenn.
Delene. Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Well, I'm here to share that I'm in the doctoral journey. I didn't know if this would even come up tonight, but I have already finished all of my coursework, and I'm in chapter 1 of my dissertation for IL psychology. And the journey has been very, very challenging. When I got into IO, one of my professors said, you know what, with your background in business, working for the state of Indiana, being an employment counselor, all of your background is not just general or clinical. Look into IO. I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
So I got into IO. I was having a blast with all of the coursework, everything I've learned, the projects. And my main focus has always been I want to go into academia.
Mhm.
And then I started hearing about all of the opportunities as a practitioner. So I'm in chapter 1 of my dissertation, and I will say it is tough.
Okay.
And there was when I first started my dissertation journey, going back to school, I was like, yes, I've always wanted my doctorate. I'm going to do this. I have a huge why because I want to impact higher education, this, that, and the other. But there are days when I lose sight of my why, literally. But it is something that someone said that it's like a lifelong journey. So I got in thinking, okay, and I'm not bragging, but I got in, I'm making the dean's list, I'm winning scholarships, got inducted to honor societies, all this great stuff, right? But it doesn't even impact the dissertation.
Okay, that's good to know.
It doesn't. So my professor was sharing with me, she said, well, then there was a workshop I went to of someone who received their doctorate, their PhD. And she said, why are you continuing? Because you have a team of a chairperson. Well, I have a team of a dissertation chair, an academic writer, and a subject matter expert. So all of them have to agree to move me to the next chapter. If
Okay.
all three don't agree, it keeps coming back. So prior to me, so chapter 1, I can go into the details later another day, but chapter 1 has been the toughest road to travel.
Hmm.
And that's when you're creating your problem statement, what do you want to study? Why do you want to study it? And then there's various components to the chapter. They have to align with all the variables. And it's a very strict and structured way that you do research. And I enjoy it, but it kicks my tail sometimes. And so, yes, it's not for the faint at heart. It's not for anyone like y'all know if you all ever heard the statement, 1 ounce of doubt and you're out. Well, I've had days I want to quit. I've been sitting there. I've had days I've been in tears.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's my why is still strong enough to say, you know what, this is a lifelong goal. This is something that I'm determined to do. So I'm willing to go through all the muddy waters to do it. So that's kind of where I am with it. And I still want to impact academia, and I want to impact it when it comes to diverse people with diverse backgrounds, because IO is not at a lot of HBCUs. I don't think any historical Black college or university has a department that I know of for sure. So some of the ways to impact, because people go to college, people go to school, they get trained to go into the work world. So learning about this and having an emerging topic that I'm, working towards earning a doctorate in, that's the exciting part. And so I do want to impact research lifelong. When I'm gone, my words still live. Whatever research I did, if it was with my peers or whatever. So I kind of see that as a driving force for me. So that's all. I don't want to talk too much, but that's basically my journey in 2 cents.
No, I appreciate the insight because I am definitely trying to go into that space, not disillusioned for what I'm going to be tackling. And I have a pretty, achiever mindset. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go in, I want to pound it out. Let's get this done as quickly as I possibly can, but still learning and being able to grow and have an impact. And so just hearing your experience and understanding some of the things that Patrick said, it's just nice to have that perspective because I haven't started to have those conversations yet for where I want to go and when I'm selecting. So it's good to know. I mean, I think the why just in general is important because even once you get into the work field, I've definitely had moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, am I doing this? Is this the right job for me? Am I in the right space? And ended nights in tears where I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. And so being able to ground yourself, I think, to your point, is a real part of just getting through all of it, school, master's, a doctorate, or even in this career field, because of how much energy and effort goes into it. Now, not all organizations are like mine, and not all projects are like mine. Some of them have like a slower pace, but can totally empathize with where you're coming from with just having to be resilient in your mindset, to push yourself forward, to continue even when you feel like this isn't this isn't going to be it for me. Like I can't do this. And I've really just been trying to, I think I communicated this to Gaby. There's a book of Brianna Weist, and in it, she just talks about just self-sabotage, and it's not really self-sabotage. It's your body and your mind's way of just kind of protecting you and keeping you in the state that you're comfortable with. We're built to be comfortable. We're not built to be happy. And so understanding that this uncomfortable feeling, while I don't like to live in it, is just a normal part of the process. And I just got to get experienced with, okay, yeah, that's what it feels like. I'm gonna need to put her in a little box over there, put that little demon in the corner and ignore it and keep it moving, because you do have to have that internal self-motivation, which it sounds like you definitely have. And I admire that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having this meetup. I haven't had the opportunity to attend any, but I'm glad I came tonight. So thank you.
Good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I think I've always had deep respect for academia. I've always just found school was my safe place growing up, was just a place where I got to, in my brain, be somewhere else, right? So I've always just loved everything about school. And I think you learn so much in school. And as you get older and you accomplish the milestones, and you graduate high school and you graduate a bachelor's and you get your master's, and you go through all these different experiences that really challenge who you are. And it has such an impact. And I love that when people are vulnerable and say, hey, this is hard and it's brought me to tears. I shared with my colleague this morning, I don't even know how many emotional breakdowns I had, like literally crying at night, typing a paper because I had to get it done. Like I don't have a choice. I have to do it. And you're just like, I'm gonna do this. And that changes you. I mean, that gives you a sense of resilience, the grit to continue, because then you do graduate and then you have to go on. And like you said, Julian, like really carry that work with you and create this new research and really fight against whatever is out there that we need to fight to publish our journals, or convince the peer reviewers that this is correct, this is what I'm trying to say, and all those other hurdles that come afterwards. So I think it's a beautiful experience. I have not been there. I can't wait when it comes to be there. But seriously, my respects to you going through this program. I know Ian, I hope I'm saying that right. He said he's in the 5th year. So I'm going to read your comment. He said, also going down the academic track, happy to chat outside of this meeting with others going through the process as well. Yes, find community. And that's another reason why I started this. Finding some community while you're working and figuring out that academic and professional life and balance. I think it helps to have someone say, me too. And I hear you. And I understand this is hard. I've been to groups where people are struggling to find jobs, and just being in that space where, you know what, I have all this education, all this experience, and I can't find a job. And it feels less awful when you have that community. And then you get to learn about other. Finnegan, I hope I'm saying that right. What you got for us?
Yeah, that is right. Thank you to Gaby and Kimari for facilitating this, and sorry for all the people walking around me. I hope that wasn't too distracting when you guys were speaking.
Okay.
I've got 3 questions. I'm happy for other people to ask theirs in between. But you mentioned that it's very important to build reports / so I guess investigate why the client is actually getting you there for your services. What do you think are the most sort of effective methods that you've used during your professional practice that help sort of squeeze out all those juicy details as to why they're getting you?
So typically we'll have like our kickoff where we have a meeting with them and have the appropriate key stakeholders in the room. And so we have like a list of questions that we standardly ask them to kind of flesh out some of these processes. And then it's also about kind of observing their behavior and their engagement in this space. So typically I'll try and watch, see what the connections are, look at their personality types. Does this person just seem to be a little bit more quiet? How do I need to kind of get them to open up or contribute or understand that dynamic more for why they might not be engaging within the space? And then from there, we'll have follow-on meetings where we kind of expand on the scope of what we're trying to accomplish. And typically in a virtual world, we have to figure out ways to create more of those connection points. And so I will get online a couple minutes before the meeting. And so try and just have some normal conversation that you might have if you were in person together. So really just trying to create some more of those natural, organic conversation touch points, and then leaning back on some of our methodologies. We'll usually have like a statement of work from the client, kind of stating what they're looking for us to accomplish. We'll review that before we go into the meeting and have that refined list of questions that we ask them typically. And then we might shift the language a little bit depending on what the topic or focus area is. And then from there, it's continuing to make sure that we're kind of meeting that standard. So those check-in points are crucial just to make sure we're in alignment, make sure that they're happy with the delivery. On our project in particular, we'll also do quarterly performance reviews, which requires us to have like the client POC there and our contracting core, and then the person from the contracting office. And so we go through a list of different areas, project management, people management, time and materials, connection points, those kind of things are listed out on there. And so we have to kind of expand on what we've accomplished over like the last couple of months. So because on my project, it's not one specific deliverable or task that we're helping them with. We have a lot of reiterations of these meetings, and we have an established rapport now. So it just becomes another line item on the meeting for us to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, happy to.
Awesome. I did put on the chat, if you guys are comfortable with sharing your LinkedIn, go ahead and connect. Did you have another question? I think you said you had 3 questions.
I'm happy to, unless anyone has another question that's popped up during that discussion.
While we think about questions and comments, I just want to throw out there, if you find this helpful, keep coming back and share your experience and share your journey, because it's so helpful to hear somebody else say, hey, this is where I'm at. Like for me and Kimari, we're thinking about doing this, and it's really helpful to know what we're walking into. And I think it's also, I hope that there's some pride in sharing your journey and saying, I'm doing this, and we're all cheering for you. So if you just want to come and be cheered for, we're here for that too. I'll make sure I get everybody on the boat on cheering. Okay. So I usually ask everybody, every speaker that comes in, for some actionable steps based on the conversation that we've had. And I may or may not have put that on there, so I'm just going to put you on the spotlight. If I didn't put it on the email, I'm sorry. But just from the conversations that we've had, what do you think are some actionable steps we can all take today to get closer to our goals? What was helpful for you? What are some of the things that you did at the beginning of your career that you felt were crucial to get into where you're at?
I think if you're wanting to go into change management, looking at the different companies out there, that was one of the first things that I did while I think I was still in my master's program, was looking for organizations that are specifically in change, and then trying to drill down into what about them I liked and what were potential other organizations that are in alignment with their mission, and leveraging kind of them as like the foundation for me to start my research and looking out. So I would say if you guys can find, 1 or 2 organizations that you feel like really speak to your values, speak to what you're looking for, use that to then start building on like the different focus areas that you want to tap into, and start creating connections now, start trying to reach out to folks in those spaces. To one, just connections are everything. I think depending on where you're at, like I'm in Northern Virginia, and so primarily in the DC space, and consulting is extremely challenging to get into. I think for my company, we hire like 1% of the applicants that come across our page. And then when you get into like the bigger four, it is a vigorous like just trying to get onboarded. Definitely keep in mind it's going to take like 6 months sometimes. I think if you can kind of focus on that to kind of drive where your energy is, and if you know you're going to go to like a big four like PwC or Booz Allen or McKinsey, really starting to integrate that into your plan so that you don't get to the end of what you're doing and then, whoop, oh, I don't have any time, but now I don't have a job and I don't have school and I don't have these things to kind of keep myself in place. So that way you can kind of tap into that network. Or if you're going down the academic route, looking at, the journey of people who are in similar fields and looking at like what their resume is and what did they do and how did they accomplish getting to where they are. I know for me, it was like getting my foot in the door. That's all I wanted to do. So I took a lower job, made a stipulation when I got hired on, like I can prove to you where I'm at, and then I want to reevaluate my position. So really just be trying to think through like the next couple steps, next couple iterations. And I think a good soft way to get into that is starting to look at one organization or two, identifying similar things, identifying what is in their vision and mission that you appreciate, and then using that to kind of set the foundation for where you're going to start looking.
I like that. I think that makes me think of the earlier conversations that we've had when I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm lost and confused. And I think that's big, really trying to understand. For me, one of the things that really stuck out in one of our first conversations was, what is that work environment? What do you want it to be like? You really got to understand what the organizational values are and does it fit with you? And recently I've had some conversations around, sometimes we feel desperate because like I waited till the very end. And then I think I was like in the middle of finishing my capstone or thesis or whatever people call it. And then I was in my last course, something that I needed to do to graduate as well. I was in an internship, I was moving states, I was trying to get a job, and it was just chaos. And when you don't know, it's good to have these conversations like groups like this to say, hey, oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got to plan for this. And I can say that those informational interviews I did, although they were really late, they made a huge difference in knowing, okay, if I'm going to get into consulting, which is still a goal of mine, it's going to take time. And these are the steps that I need to take. So definitely find more groups like this and share more with other people. Like, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing? And let's compare notes, because it's rather than taking from someone, you're really just helping each other grow. And I think that's the beautiful thing about IO, that it's just so diverse that you really can't always take the same path somebody else already did. So all right, any last thoughts before we jump off? Anybody wants to share some last minute thoughts? Yes, Patrick.
I feel like I had to say this one thing for those who are interested in going the PhD route, which is that the relevant work experience is research. So having research experience likely with an academic, if you can, is a really, really big skill set to have if you want to go that route. So I just wanted to really put that on people's radar.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think to even piggyback on what Patrick said, if you're also looking to do like something that's entrepreneurial, not everybody is going to have their desire to work for a company. Maybe you want to build and do on your own. There's different ways for you can do that as well. And I think trying to connect with the people who've gone through that and like Gaby said, being able to kind of leverage each other to learn from their experiences and potentially provide opportunities for yourself is a good route to go as well.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time to sharing with us. I know you're super busy. So thank you for taking the time to just come in here and share what consulting life is like. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that with consulting, I think you had, and I don't know if you remember our conversation, like I wrote it all down, but you had mentioned like your ability to learn and be quick and be feeling, and I think you mentioned this at the beginning, being able to engage and being challenged and learn quick and just adapt is one of the most important skills. And I think as we're going through our individual journeys, being able to look at the challenges from that perspective. Oh, when I get into consulting, when I get this change management job, or when I get whatever IO related job, these are going to be very similar feelings I may be feeling. So how can I adapt? How can I overcome? How can I find and start working on that problem solving? Because I think that was one of the big things that I took was, oh, I can actually learn from this and I can take it into the workplace and I can teach people how to do it. And that was empowering because sometimes it can be overwhelming or just difficult to try to figure everything out and find your place. And I mean, adulting is hard, but that's
Adulting is super hard. Adulting is super hard. And no, I commend you for creating the space for this and giving people an opportunity to do something like this without feeling the pressure of a one-on-one. So I think that it's been great to kind of just watch your journey because I've been watching your journey on LinkedIn too. So happy to just support you in this space. And if you guys want to reach out to me, I put my LinkedIn in the chat. It's a very long, extended version of it, but you can find me online. I'm pretty responsive and happy to provide any additional support should you need it.
Cool, thank you. And she is responsive. She's very kind. And I did read that book and then I went on and read the other books and my life was changed. But also those books really kicked my butt because I did not want to hear some stuff, but that's for a different conversation.
Agreed. I feel you on that one for sure.
Yeah. And those are the Brianna Weiss books. So if you guys want to get into some soul searching on top of everything else you guys are already doing, those books are so good. The essay one, that's probably my favorite one. I read that when I'm just struggling with life and work, and those really get you out there. But well, I want to be mindful of everybody's time. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. Make sure you guys connect intentionally, and I will see you in 2 weeks. And I cannot tell you who's going to be on here because it's been 2 crazy weeks, but be here and then you'll find out and figure it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabby. Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. You have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.